Hello, welcome to Gardener's World. Now this week we're at the Malvern Spring Show. Malvern is my own local show, it's just down the road from Longmeadow. And of course it's set against this fabulous backdrop of the Malvern Hills. And today, and it doesn't always happen at Malvern, we are blessed with wonderful weather. Now helping me discover all that we can find here is Carol and also Adam Frost, the Chelsea Gold Medal winning garden designer. And we will be distilling the essence of Malvern over the next half an hour. And hopefully finding time for a bit of shopping too. Now whilst of course it's lovely to have sunshine, you know, it doesn't matter what the weather is like at Malvern because it's so much a seasonal show. You see spring expressed gloriously in the show gardens and the stands, in the floral marquee with all the thousands of plants. And I'll be going into those floral marquees later on, looking for a very particular type of plant to be at its best as regards fragrance in the evening.
I'm going to be looking at why plants have scent. And with nursery people here, gathering all their best wares together, I know I'm bound to find something that's really going to tickle my nostrils.
I'm going to spend my day looking for design ideas for small spaces. And with so many show gardens here to see, there's got to be loads of ideas to take home.
One of the perks and privileges of my job is I get to visit the floral marquee before it's open to the public, and yet when it's ready for judging. So everything is looking and smelling perfect. Lilies are one of those iconic perfume flowers that will smell rich and delicious morning, noon and night. Now, there's one called Zambezi here, which I like the look of and has got wonderful perfume. I suspect that most of us don't grow clematis primarily for fragrance, but many do smell really good. This is Luna Lass. It grows very slowly, so that's no good for a pergola or sprawling over a large area. But if you see it spilling down, it then becomes really interesting. And I really like it. And I think that might work well spilling over the wall on the mound. There's a Floxia, Divaricata, clouds of perfume. Good color, very pretty flower, and as the name suggests, good perfume. But it's one that stays on an even note throughout the day. It doesn't get better as we go along, so I'm going to pass on that. But if you wanted one by the back door to greet you in the morning, be ideal. Right there is one of the muskiest, richest scents of all. That's a Brugmansia. Though, unfortunately, in recent years, although I've grown them perfectly successfully in the past, I've not been able to get my Brugmansia to flower. Excuse me. Hello.
Auntie?
I really like Brugmansias, but they've stopped flowering for me.
The best thing with a Brugmansia is they do like a lot of feed. They like a high phosphaten feed, like a tomato feed, if you've got that, and plenty of it.
The key, which I've been doing wrong, is really feed them.
Feed them every week, if not twice a week when they're...
And how poisonous are they?
Extremely. All parts of the plant, if ingested, can cause issues.
So you wear gloves?
You wear gloves. As long as you treat it with respect, then it will reward you with the beautiful flowers and incredible perfume.
I'm going to bear this very strongly in mind, so I know we'll be back.
Choice. Excellent, Monty.
Thank you. As the gates open, people make a beeline to the show gardens, and Carol is right there with them because she is a woman on a mission.
So welcome to Villaggio Verde, the Garden of Romance. It really is the most breathtaking garden. But it's not just that it takes your breath away, it fills your nostrils with all these gorgeous scents and perfumes. It's just like being in the Mediterranean. And over here, there are great banks of rosemary, a typical Mediterranean shrub. It's the foliage here which is scented. It's really pungent, and when the sun is beating down from above, on the back of each of these leaves are tiny glands which contain essential oils, and they are sort of exuded into the air and make this great cloud around the shrub. And that actually keeps the air cooler and protects the shrub. But not all plants do it in the same way. This gorgeous rose, Alba Garcia, has the most enchanting perfume. It's rich and gorgeous. The perfume is produced on their petals, and it moves out in great plumes into the surrounding air. And pollinating insects can sense it, smell it, so they move in, pulled into focus by this perfume, find its source, and actually take the pollen and pollinate the flower. It's a superb sort of relationship and a very successful one. Unusually, this is a tulip with scent. It's called brown sugar, and it flings back its petals in full sun when its toffee perfume is at its strongest. But it isn't just a question of how plants emit their scent. It's very much a matter of when that happens. If you're a daytime flowerer, say a rose, then you want to bring in all those daytime pollinators, bees and hoverflies. But what if you've evolved to be pollinated by moths? In the case of this glorious Gladiolus tristis from South Africa, that's exactly what's happened. The two have evolved side by side. And if I lean over now and sniff these gorgeous flowers, I can't smell a thing. But if I'm still standing here as dusk descends, then this plant is going to emit these clouds of perfume. And of course, all the moths will gather. And if you want to grow this delightful plant yourself, it needs the shelter of a sunny wall. If you haven't got one, grow it in a pot. And as it starts to burst into bloom, bring it outside on a hot summer's evening, and you too can enjoy that delicious perfume.
Hello, Adam.
How are you, Phil?
I'm very well. Very nice to see you here. And I gather this is your first visit to Malvern.
It is, yeah. I'm normally in, West London at Chelsea, sort of building my own gardens, so it's lovely.
And what do you feel about it as a show? I mean, you're a very experienced show hand. What are you looking for when you're going around the garden?
First of all, it's that sense of theatre.
Yeah.
So it's that feeling as if you want to be drawn into the place. But then the detail. I think ideas for small spaces, so ideas that people can take home. I mean, you look at the Italian garden. I walked in that, and that had that sense of theatre. I got goosebumps, so it was absolutely amazing. But also, there's loads of ideas for small spaces. Yeah. You look at this garden. This garden, in a sense, has got it all. We play with levels, great for small spaces, and the boundaries. That people don't think about their boundaries. They just think, oh, fence and I'll paint it. Yeah. Whereas actually, if you think about it, there's as much surface around the garden as there is in the garden.
I mean, what we have here, which I like, as you say, is the levels. You naturally sit here, and the garden is happening at eye level.
Exactly. So all of a sudden, if the wildlife come in, you get to view the wildlife in a different way, but also the built-in seating. Yeah. It's a great way of sort of, all right, it's a retaining wall, but if we had a table and chairs sat in the middle of here, we wouldn't get the amount of seating that we've got.
Well, I'm going off now to look for some scented plants. So hopefully they'll be ready and I'll find some.
Good luck with
that.
And
you're going to keep on looking at God.
Yeah, all those ideas for small spaces.
All right, I'll see you later.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
What I really love about show gardens, I really could be sat, just in someone's garden, not in a showground. And on top of that, the amount of wonderful ideas you can take home for small spaces. I mean, this garden here, it could be a front garden, it could be a lovely path going up to a front door. We feel like that we need acres for a meadow, but this garden proves different. A lovely little meadow wraps around this edge of this near-perfect rock pool. But then on top of that, when you look back, I've got this beautiful little water feature, drops into my pool, and it would pull in masses of wildlife. So this really proves to me that you do not need a big garden to have a beautiful space. This is another cracking idea. You know, you might look at it and just think simple wall with a seat on top. But actually, if you just put a bench in here, you would have hidden all this wall. And what I think's so clever, by actually building the bench in, you're leaving the wall exposed, and what has created a whole alpine garden in a really small space. One of the questions I get asked a lot is about plants for small spaces. I think we look at our books and we look at large shrubs, we look at medium shrubs, and we automatically sort of think we can't grow those. But do you know what? You can actually prune and manipulate an awful lot of our plants. You know, look at this wisteria, it's a prime example. It's been beautifully pruned. You would not think that you could grow a wisteria necessarily in a small space, but look at it. It would make a great focal point for any small space. It looks beautiful.
It doesn't matter what kind of show garden you're making, you have to put incredible attention to detail. But the smaller the garden, the more you have to distill that down. So literally every square inch becomes significant. And last year, Emily Sharp won the People's Choice Award for Best Small Garden and also a Silver Gold medal. And this year, she's back here again. And a few weeks ago, Joe went to see how she's getting on.
Broughton Castle, a fortified manor house dating back to the 1300s, set in the Oxfordshire countryside, and where Emily has found inspiration for her show garden this year.
So I was asked by a charity called UCare to design a garden based on Broughton Castle. Broughton Castle is home to Lord and Lady Say and Seal, who are patrons of the charity, and so there was a link there between Broughton Castle and the charity. I wanted to include the architecture of the building, the gardens and the landscape to create a picture of what Broughton feels like. It's got its own air and character, a very particular sense of place, which makes it feel very special, and I wanted to reflect that in the garden.
You're trying to capture all this and put it in a relatively small show garden at Malvern.
That's the plan, yes.
Sounds like a big job.
The first thing Emily wants to show me about her design inspiration isn't anything in the gardens, but something inside the house.
So, Joe, this is the oak-panelled drawing room. And when I first visited Broughton Castle, this was the room that I loved the most, really. I've taken most of the inspiration for the layout from the garden, and in particular, the actual pattern in the oak panelling. So I've arranged the borders based on the shape of the panelling that we've got.
Do you often get inspiration from the inside of a house?
Not necessarily, but Broughton Castle is so special, and I was so inspired by the building itself that when I came to this room, and just with the light that's falling on it at this time of day, it just looked so beautiful and immediately gave me an idea of how I could use the shapes within the garden.
Really beautiful.
The roof is the perfect place to see where other key elements used in Emily's design came from.
You've seen the inspiration from the inside. What in your garden relates to what we see here?
So I've taken inspiration from the box hedging in the ladies' garden to define the oak panelling that we saw downstairs in the drawing room. And I've also taken inspiration from the mature trees in both the gardens and in the parkland. I've chosen some large mature Cornus controversa, and those are the 3 trees within the garden, which will not only sort of give maturity so that it feels like the show garden is older perhaps than it is, but will also enclose the space and make it feel like a private space for people to enjoy.
The trees will work really nicely because they'll give that lovely dapple shade beneath, like a tonal contrast. But also you've used the show garden trick of bringing them to the foreground so the visitors will look through the trees and see the trunk, and it sort of creates that lovely depth of field.
I think it also balances out the structure of the sort of the upper space within the garden as well by doing that, rather than having too much empty space in a sort of higher level. It was important to include water in the garden for me. The moat is such a key part of the gardens here at Broughton that I wanted to bring that into the garden, and I've chosen to keep it in a sort of quite linear shape as the moat actually is here.
Well, you can't have a castle without a moat.
No.
The gardens at Broughton Castle are designed to be at their best in summertime, and not much is in flower just yet. So I want to see what Emily is using for her show garden in only a couple of weeks' time.
The starting point has been this beautiful pink tulip, Tulipa Caress. And then I've picked a colour palette that goes with the tulip, so that we've got a nice, bright, uplifting set of colours in the garden that represents the aims and ideas of the charity.
The timing of plants for show gardens is the trickiest thing, isn't it? Especially this year. It's been so cold. The nights have been so cold. Have you had a real problem getting hold of what you want?
It's been very difficult. I planned a palette of colours based on what I knew was flowering this time last year at the Malvern show, but this year everything is so much behind. It's been a very cold spring despite the warm winter. Plants aren't as far along as I would like, and so I'm going to have to compromise on what I originally wanted to put in the garden.
So what have we got exactly?
The geranium was something that I wanted to have in the garden from the beginning, so that's something that's been there through the choice of my colour palette. And I really like Samobor because of the markings on the leaves, and again, it's giving me that texture and colour within the foliage.
And this Olea?
It'll be really good for me to be able to fill in with something that's sort of got that nice, light, frothy foliage. Originally, I didn't want to put so much white into the garden, but again, I'm having to be flexible because of the growing conditions this year.
And at the end, you just say, well, that's exactly how I wanted it in the first place, and everybody's happy.
They won't now be, because I'm on film, so it's going to be different.
So last year, you got a Silver Gilt and a People's Choice Award as well, didn't you?
I did, yes.
So this year?
It's a privilege to design a show garden, so at the end of the day...
come on, I've heard that one before. How do you think you're going to do? I mean...
It would be nice not to go backwards on last year's results, so to get a Silver Gilt would be fantastic, and I know that the charity would be happy with that.
That's very diplomatic, that is. That is very diplomatic.
So how did you get on?
We were awarded a Silver Gilt.
Happy?
Yes, very happy.
So-
With everything that we have put into it and all the weather problems to achieve a Silver Gilt is really good.
Because I know Joe was trying to pull out of you, you know, whether you wanted that gold or whatever.
It would, of course, have been wonderful to have a gold, but I've learned so much doing this. It's my first time doing a large show garden, so, you know, given that, I'm really, really chuffed.
Cool. Any feedback from the judges?
Generally quite positive on the layout, and points to work on were the planting. So you need to just work a little bit harder on bringing the plants together and making it more cohesive.
You going to do it again?
Not immediately, no. It's been such fun. I've done show gardens for 2 years in a row. I've promised my husband that I will keep away from them for a good few years, so we'll see what happens. But I'm not planning on jumping straight back in the next year or two.
I promised my wife and my family that I wouldn't go back to Chelsea, and there's a little bit of me thinking, I'm not sure I said the right thing, you know.
Yeah.
So I think it will draw you back in, ultimately, but take that break, make the husband happy, and come back later.
And then bring him back in a few years'
Exactly.
time.
When you're surrounded by such horticultural excellence, it must be truly daunting to bring your plants here and put them on public display. For the very first time, Stella Exley from Hairspring Cottage Plants has done just that. She's brought her plants all the way from Sheffield at the foot of the Pennines.
I first saw Camassia in a garden in South Devon, probably about 17 years ago now, and we actually went to view the property to buy it, but I was more interested in what I saw at the edge of this woodland. There were these bright blue, star-like flowers that just captivated me. They just touched me, and since then I've been hooked. And I suppose looking back now, that's when my passion, some say obsession with Camassia really started. What I really, really love about Camassia is not just that deep blue, stunning deep blue colour, but I love the foliage. When the foliage first starts to appear in spring, the sap's not only rising in them, but it rises in me too. I get so excited every year. It's just a visual feast for the eyes. They're absolutely incredible, and they just take my breath away. Camassia are very easy to grow. They're happy in virtually any environment. So from deep shade to full sun, you can grow them pretty much anywhere. Nothing touches them. Slugs and snails don't eat them. They're incredibly easy to propagate, so even if you're a beginner, you could easily learn to bulk up your own collection of Camassia, so plants for free. The weather doesn't bother them, so whether it's snow, whether it's a hailstorm, they're virtually bomb-proof. Camassia could possibly be the perfect plant. I've realised it's not just about me and my love of them. I want to share that with a much wider audience. My first opportunity to do that was when I met Chris Beardshaw last year, and he asked me to grow 4,000 individual pots of Camassia for his garden at RHS Chelsea. It was an enormous undertaking. After 7 months of virtually not sleeping, rotating these beauties around, trying to get the best out of them, I did it. Huge lorry appeared, got them loaded up, and off they went. And Chris Beardshaw won a gold medal, and my Camassia were one of the main feature plants in that garden. I was so proud and delighted to see them on such a worldwide stage. Achieving that last year, I decided I want to challenge myself even further. And I thought, I'm going to go solo, and I'm going to fly solo, and I'm going to apply to RHS Malvern Spring Flower Show, because that is perfect Camassia flowering time. This time next week is judging for my exhibit. As you can see, some of them are just starting to show a little bit of flower. So what I need to be doing now is my twice a day, up and down the rows of Camassia, checking those plump buds, checking which ones are going to make it for me, nudging them in and out of either the greenhouse, in and out of the woodland area. Any bits of weeds I find, pull them out. And then I'm checking the flower spike. There it is. I want lots to choose from, so I've got a good variety, and they all look perfect and sparkling for Malvern.
Stella, you've done it. How did you get on?
I got a silver medal, Carol. I'm absolutely thrilled and delighted.
Over the moon.
I really am over the moon.
It's a lovely feeling, but how did your Camassias perform?
The Camassia performed perhaps not quite as well as I wanted to for judging, but throughout the week they are going to look stunning.
So the people who come at the weekend will get the full benefit of these beautiful flowers. Well done.
I'm thrilled.
Utterly gorgeous.
Thank you, they are.
It's always lovely to come to a show, relax, enjoy a garden without having to do any work. But the work isn't going to go away, so here are your jobs for the weekend.
Herbaceous perennials are growing very fast at the moment, and sooner or later they will need support. But it's important to put this into place before it's necessary. It doesn't matter what you use, I'm using metal hoops, but string and twine will do the job, as will brushwood. And whatever it is, put it in so that it doesn't hold the plant in a straitjacket, but is gently propping it up. If you've kept tender plants like pelargoniums under cover in a greenhouse or a conservatory over winter, they will need some acclimatization before they go to their final position outside. And this hardening off process should last for at least a week. Put them somewhere sunny and out of the wind and group them together, which provides more protection. And just in case we still have a frost, have some fleece handy to protect them overnight. If slugs weren't problem enough, pigeons can be a real nuisance at this time of year, especially with young brassica plants like these cabbages. The best way to deter them is to provide a barrier in the shape of netting. Put up a framework that's tall enough so they can't reach down through it, and stretch netting across it, pegging or weighing it down firmly.
Here you are. I don't know about you, I'm hot but happy.
Yes, and where better to sit than under an olive tree,
Well, we've
eh?
all been shopping. What have you brought?
It's a camassia, and it's called Blue Heaven. And I just fell for these very pale blue flowers. I just love the way that they mix up with the green of the buds and give you this sort of
It's beautiful.
turquoisey effect.
It is heavenly. What have you got?
I've got an Acer Ariadne, inspired really from a visit to Julian Dow's garden that is east meets west. I loved it.
Aces I've always wanted to have in the garden, but wind has always been the problem.
You've had a problem with wind?
Well, I have a terrible problem with wind. With aces, only with aces. They do need shelter.
They do. I think
Yeah.
if you think about it, you sort of in nature they are semi sort of woodland trees, so they want that dapple shade, quite sheltered, leaf mould round the bottom. So I mean, this will go in a pot, but it will put it in a cool place, and hopefully she'll be happy.
Now I'm really intrigued. You've had a day, your first day at Malvern. What do you think?
I know I've had a fantastic day. Honestly, it's been amazing. I've been able to walk around the show. I've been able to buy something, and this is quite a special show, isn't it? I mean, it's my first visit, but the atmosphere here is really, really lovely.
And Carol, I mean, you've been here lots of times, really lots and lots of times, showing and seeing and telling us about them and all that sort of thing.
27 years.
Is it still got its allure?
I came as a young girl, of course.
Yes, of course, yeah, still up.
Yes, it really has got its allure. There's nowhere like it, really, at all. And this sort of weather is just perfection. Especially in a garden like this, eh?
It makes sense, doesn't it? It all comes together. A nice sort of southern garden, heat baking down.
Yeah.
And it looks as though the weather's going to stay good. So if you want to come along, do. There's lots of room to park, there's lots of room to walk about, and the show is open until Sunday night. And if you go to our website, you'll get all the details. That's it from us, from Malvern, but I'll be back at Longmeadow at the normal time next week. So have a great weekend, and I'll see you next Friday. Till then, bye-bye.